So let's get into it. So guys, you've got to decide, why are you in pig farming? Are you, is it a hobby or a lifestyle choice for you? Place to get away from the old wife on the weekends, or is it that you want to be your own boss? And for me, that was always a big part of my motivation and so on. I wanted to be the master of my own time. I wanted to have the flexibility to spend time with my children and so on, while working for myself. So being my own boss was always a big part of my motivation. Also, is the supplement to your income, and especially in Botswana, very few farmers do it full time. They work in town, and weekends they go and farm. Now, the thing about pig farming is it is incredibly intensive. The margins, if you do it well, is good. If not, if your efficiencies aren't there, then your chances are that you're going to be losing money instead of making it. So if you want to do it as a supplement to your income and so on, then you've got to train your staff and still be close enough or have somebody to monitor the weekly running of your piggery and so on. Again, that if you leave it, the Zulus have got a saying that it's the eye of the owner that fattens his cattle. Nobody is going to look after your animals like you do, and so on. So decide whether you want to do it as a part-time business, or do you want to do it so that it can replace your income, and this is your full-time income and so on. So firstly, then you definitely need to do your sums, see what you can make per pig, and then work out, can I live on that? That if I have a 1 litre a week or 2 litres a week, at what level can I actually stop my full-time work and start doing it full-time pig farming? Okay, so guys, you've got to, as I said, if you're keeping records and you are not using the data for something, then you're just wasting your time. So the next question then is, which records do I have to keep, and so on. And for me, at my piggery, my Bible just about is my mating records. And we're going to look at the actual one just now and on the spreadsheet. But of course, on your mating records, you have the sow and the boar's ID. You got to mate that sow with that boar and so on. Of course, that can be used if you want to. But if you've got more than one boar and you're selling breeding stock and you want to make sure that you can sell a boar and some gilts to a fellow producer and so on without having them that they're not related, so that they're not doing inbreeding and so on. So those two pieces of information is very important. And also then that you need to have, of course, ear tags and to identify different sows and boars from each other, so that you know which ones is now due this month. It's sort of almost 4 months in the future. Okay, then the dates, of course, that you have to add there is as well the date that you weaned the sow. If it is a sow, if it's a gilt, then you won't have the weaning date. And then the date that they are remated, if it's a sow that was mated before you weaned her, and how many days later did you get her pregnant again. Because that figure, which is called the weaning to oestrus interval, or W-O-I for like this at the bottom here. That is one of the figures that make up your litters per sow per year total and so on. So we're going to look at that as well. Then, of course, you need to have a record of how many piglets were born in that litter and so on. And also then differentiate between the ones that was born alive, the one that's mummified, the stillborn ones, the overlaid ones, so that you can have a record of what happened with that litter. So that in your sow records later on, you will pick up that the sow is always squashing a lot of babies, or that she is having abortions and so on, or she's having mummified babies. And if you look at this is happening over a few sows, then you know you've got a problem with parvo or lepto and so on. So this information as a once-off wouldn't ring alarm bells, but if you've got them all together and you can see this is happening frequently, then you know that you've got a problem and so on. So it's a good way of sort of early detection, where if you had it on cardboard pieces of paper, then you might not have picked it up. Then, very importantly, of course, to know that every day on Facebook, people ask, how do I know that my sow is pregnant? Of course, the best way to do it is to check her 21 days after mating for the first time. So check her 21 days. No, she's not pregnant. So she's not coming back on heat. So you presume her pregnant. Again, just as a final check at day 42. No, she's still not coming on heat. So yes, now you take her as being pregnant. Then the date due to farrow, very important, because it gives you a time by when the next litter is coming, and it means that you've got to get her into a farrowing crate before that date, sort of 4 or 5 days before that date, so that she can settle in, get used to the new environment, so it doesn't cause stress while she's starting to give birth and so on. Then your actual farrowing date is important because, guys, if you have a sow with a very big litter, the babies will come out a day or 2 or 3 early and so on, because they run out of space, so the litter comes out early. If you have a sow with a very small litter, they can hang on for another 2 or 3 days inside her, because they're not running out of space, they can still survive and so on. Then they get so big, now it's got enough space to grow inside, but then they get so big that it could get so big that they can't get through the birth canal, especially with younger gilts and sub-sized gilts and so on as well. Okay, so your actual farrowing date you need to fill in as well. And then optional in that same mating sheet to just have all these dates in one place and so on is your vaccination and deworming dates and so on. Of course, these 2 dates are 21 days after mating and 42 days after mating. Of course, these vaccination dates is 2 weeks before farrowing and 6 weeks before farrowing when you're doing these vaccinations and boosters and so on. And then, so these are all sort of individual matings and so on, but from that you can get a herd average for your total weaning to oestrus interval. And out of that herd average is, of course, what you work out for your whole herd, the interfarrowing period, and also the litters per sow per year, which is very important to know about your piggery. So as I say, my mating record sheet is just about my bylaw. Every week on a Thursday, I wean my sows. Monday and Tuesdays are mating days. Monday morning, check them. Yes, they are neat. They get mated Monday morning, Monday afternoon, Tuesday morning. But in that time when the boar goes through foreplay and they're snuggling each other and pushing each other around and so on, while foreplay is going on, you look at your list and say, 21 days ago, that sow was mated, and you go and look, no, she's not on heat. That sow at 42 days ago, she was mated. No, she's not coming on heat as well. So you can do your weekly heat checks while you're waiting for this week's mating to happen and so on. So it's all there in one place, and you've got a reference for making decisions on. The second very important record is your individual sow records, and then of course from that your herd average records that come from that. So of course there again you need your boar mated for each parity. So that individual sow records will have all her parities in one place. Parity meaning how many times she's given birth. So for the first time she gave birth, you got all her records. For the second time, and also the difference in dates, or the time between the 2 farrowings. It's called your interfarrowing period. How many days between farrowings, and that will also come into your litters per sow per year. Of course, the litter number for each parity and so on, and of course the litter number, if you sort of get less than 50 sows, you can do that. If you've got an ear notching system that I'll show you, that you can give the litter number as the week of the year that they were born in. So then you also got an automatic record of how old your pigs are when they get to slaughter. So let's say this piglets are born on the last week of June, so that's week 26, and you're sending them to the abattoir at the week before Christmas. So that's week 51. So they were born on 26. That's now 51. So you know that they are 25 weeks old. So for every pig in your piggery, you, with a glance of the eye, know exactly how old it is. And we spoke about this before. That is actually the most important piece of information you need to know about your pigs, because if they are taking too long to get to a slaughter weight, they eat up your profit and you're not making any money, and so on. So, and knowing that they are not where they should be, firstly, of course, you've got to know how old they should be at what weight. Benchmarks is at 16 weeks, they should weigh 70 kilos. If they are not, then you know you've got a problem. You don't know what the problem is yet. It could be bad genetics, bad health, with hygiene and so on. Could be rubbish food or not enough of good food and so on. So there could be or genetics and so on. Could be different things, but you know that you've got a problem, and you can start looking for a fix of it. If you do not know you've got a problem, you carry on. End of the year, your auditor says you've made no profit, and it comes as a surprise to you, and you haven't fixed anything yet. Okay, so the actual farrowing date as well, because as I say, that there can be a 2 or 3 days difference between the due date, 114 days after mating, or between that and the actual farrowing date could be 3 or 4 days later. The days between consecutive farrowings or your inter-farrowing period, the number of piglets per litter, and how much were born total, how many of them were mummified, if any, how many of them were born alive, how many were stillborn. Of course, mummified piglets point towards parvovirus and so on. They come out with mummified piglets. Stillborn is mostly attributed to leptospirosis and so on. Again, this could be early warning signs. And then how many you've actually weaned. Yet on Facebook, everyone shows you how many, my beautiful litter, 16 was born. They don't tell you 3 days later, the mom has squashed 4 of them, or they started scouring and I've lost a whole lot of them. So the number weaned is very important at 4 weeks as well. Any observations and complications you can make a note of as well. It's the sow that sort of gave birth 4 or 5 days later, but yes, it could be because she only had 7 piglets, or she had problems with giving birth, wouldn't push them out. I had to assist, and if this it happens once, it's more likely to happen again. So make note of those things. So next time around, you say, okay, she had problems, so make sure you're there to check on her if she's had problems in the last pregnancy and so on. And of course, from this information, you can work out your herd average inter-farrowing period. So it's important to know it for each sow, but it's even more important to know the average for your whole herd. It's great to say that this sow gave me 16 piglets, and she the inter-farrowing period is 147 days, perfect, and so on. But if that's the only one, and you've got 4 others that took 100 days extra to between litters, that doesn't help you at all. It means you're sinking. So the herd average is the thing that makes you the profit or not, and also your average whole litter sizes and so on. That's for the whole herd. How many piglets as an average for the whole herd are you weaning per litter, and so on. Okay, the next record that we're going to look at is the complete litter record. So we've got records of the matings, we've got records of each sow and each farrowing for each sow, and then we've got this litter record where we gather all the data about that litter in one sheet. So, of course, the litter number, which, of course, should be the week of the year that they were born in. That will give you the age to date. Doesn't matter that anywhere during its life, you will know exactly how old that pig is. of course, very importantly, of course, who's the mother and the father. So again, that you can select piglets out of different litters if you want to sell boar and gilts breeding stock to somebody, so that they're not related. So the boar and dam sire, of course, is the boar, and dam is the mother. Their IDs or the ear tag numbers. The fate of the litter since birth. So you get born, total born, number mummified, number stillborn, number live. Then also, if it was a litter of 16 and you fostered 4 off to another sow who had 7 and so on, you've got to say, yes, she had 16. She's only weaned 11, but 4 of them went to that sow and so on. So you'll add the fostered off on this sow, and the sow that they went on to, you will add that they were fostered on, and so on. She only had 7, now she's got 11, and so on, fostered on. Then the dates born and slaughtered, so that gives you average days to slaughter. That of course, is what I said is the most important information to work out whether you're making a profit or not. The herd average, so the herd average days old at slaughter, the total numbers weaned per litter, and so on. And then also you can work out the average slaughter weight from the feed conversion table. So when we get to the sheet, I'll explain to you more what that means and so on. Okay, the fourth record that we're going to look at is your monthly stock reconciliation. So for every month, you start with a certain amount of pigs. Of course, that is the numbers that you ended last month with, and so on is your starting numbers for this month. Then you've got to have that tells you how many stock did you gain and how many stock did you lose. So the gains might be your piglets born or pigs bought on. You bought a new boar, you bought some more gilts and so on. And also stock class changes. So this gilts that you've been holding on to, they are now not gilts anymore, or they're still gilts, but they are now mated gilts. And then in 2 or 3 months from now, they are, 4 or 5 months from now, they are actually sows. They're not gilts anymore because they've had babies and so on. So how the stock classes has changed over that month and so on. So changes in stock classes. And the stock classes that we've got is for the growing pigs are sort of unweaned piglets, so the piglets that's still on the mum, up to 10 and so on, and then your piglets weaned from that's actually I missed this class in there. So it's, first class is piglets still on their mum, and then weaned piglets up to 10 weeks old. Then from 10 weeks to 18 weeks old. From 18 to 22 weeks, and then sort of over 22 weeks, which will mostly be your gilts that you're keeping back for increasing your herd or for replacements and so on. Then your unselected, your unmated selected gilts, your mated selected gilts, and also then your new young boars that you bought in to bring in new blood to mate your gilts that you've kept back, and so on. Also, the numbers and reason for stock number decreases. So we've looked at the increases, could be newborns, stock bought in or a change in class. The reason for stock numbers decreasing, it could be deaths, could be sold as meat, it goes off to the abattoir, sold and held back as breeding, or sold to somebody else as breeding stock, or you're held back for yourself for breeding stock. So of course you've got to work those numbers into the stock numbers as well, and then the change of stock class is the same categories as those. So that will give you a monthly start number and a end of the month start number and so on. So you can use that for your tax purposes at the end of the year, and also if you're doing a business plan and so on, that you've bought breeding stock, you spend a lot of money on it and so on, you've been drawing from the bank, and you have to show at some stage that even though I haven't sent any pigs to the abattoir yet, I've gained value. There are so many pigs on their mum, so many that age pigs, and there's a valuation system that you can add to that and say, I'm actually have not earned, that I have on hand the value of this stock and so on. So a monthly stock reconciliation will give you those kind of data. Okay, the next one that we're going to look at, or the next tab that we've got under this in this spreadsheet, is the sow gestation table. So that gives you, if you've mated it on this date, it's due to farrow on that date, and that date when it's farrowed is this week of the year. So it works with this ear notching system that I'll show you as well, and so on. So let's go and have a look at that in the spreadsheet itself. Let me just get there. There. Okay, let's make that bigger again. Okay, so guys, let's start from the beginning. There's a bit of a note to sort of how to use your spreadsheet and so on if you purchase this. Now, the first tab here is, of course, your mating records. Get there. Okay, so there's an example here. So your sow ID and so on. I just put in an example as the sow ID. The boar ID is boar number 1. So if you have a 25 sow unit, you could have 1 or 2 boars. So you put a number 1 and a number 2 on the ears so that you know which boar you've used. And of course, you try and alternate your boars to give maximum rest for number 2. You won't use 2, 2, 2. It's sort of consecutively in the same week and so on, because then you're running their battery flat and so on. So you sort of you'd alternate between your boars and so on. Then your sow numbers, of course, all of these will be with ear tags on the ears and so on. Then your weaning date. So if it's sow who's farrowed before, she was weaned on that date and only got mated again at that date. So it means that she had 23 days between weaning and mating. So obviously she had skipped or returned to service or didn't come on heat in that 4 days after. And so that is a bad thing. And if you see number 12 doing that a few times and so on, then you might think, okay, I'll get rid of her and replace her with a different gilt. So these, the average days should be 3, 4, 5 days between weaning and interval and actually mating them. And of course, at the bottom of this, we add up those and give you a herd average. So just I'll show you down the bottom here. This one goes for 110 matings, and the herd average for those 4 sows that I've got is 8.75 days, which is the average of that divided by 4. Okay, so the number of successful matings is also important. That if you only get 1 mating out of her and she returns, then you know why, because you only got 1 mating out of her, and it might have been the first one, and I said to you the second and third mating is the more important ones. So you have to have a record of how many matings you actually got into her. Then, of course, 21 days after the mating date, and these gray columns has got formulas that work it out automatically. So by the time you've put in the mating date, it will add automatically when your 21-day check and your 42-day check will be. It will also tell you when your first vaccination for litter guard and farrow sure should be. Also your second or your booster vaccination 2 weeks before farrowing for litter guard and farrow sure. And of course your deworming ivermectin at that same date as well. And then the due date. And of course, if she's farrowing a day or 2 early, then you actually put the actual farrowing date in there as well. So guys, here you just fill in the white tables, and these are worked out with formulas. So it's that one minus that one gives you that, and so on. This is now I'll just show you here. Sorry. We are now 12 today. So let me just sorry. Guys, whenever one of these dates fall on today's date, it will light up in black. So if you look at every morning at this sheet, it will say, okay, guys, you send it WhatsApp to your workers at the farm. remember to check sow number 18 for a 21-day check. And so if that one was 42 days later, it will also, so everything that is today's date will light up in black like that. And you know, okay, I've got to check that one for 21 days, that one for 42 days, and so on. And then I've got to vaccinate that sow and deworm that sow. So it sort of gives you a to-do list for today. Okay, so that is our mating records. Then our sow farrowing records and so on. So of course the sow number 1, her date of birth or purchase, and so on. So you know when you bought her or when she was born. Her genotype, she might be a large white landrace cross, and then her parity. So the first time she gives birth goes under there. Second time up to the 6th. Usually we call it 5th, but if you're still increasing your herd, you might give her a 6th chance and so on. So the born number goes there, the litter number, of course, which is again, if you take the 30th of April and so on, sorry, that was her birth date. If she gave birth on the at the end of June, the litter number will be, so like 30th of June, she farrowed then, the litter number will be week 26. Of course, there's no inter-farrowing period. The second time that she gives birth, it will take the difference between that date, and that is 146 days, which is perfect. It means it took her 4 days to get pregnant, again after mating, 4 weeks lactation, and 114 days pregnancy and so on. So she's spot on, 146 days, perfect, and so on. But again, these numbers get added up for that sow and gives you a sow average for interfarrowing period. So you can see, yep, this sow is every year, after every farrowing, she got on the heat after 4 days. She's 46, 146, 147 all the time. So she's one of my top sows. And if you get a sow with it's sort of 200 days between, you know that you're getting problems with getting her pregnant every time, and she might be due for looking at culling and so on. Then we said that the piglets born, we need to know what they died of and how many of them died and how many of them you actually weaned at the end of 4 weeks and so on, and the date weaned as well. And of course, for sow 1, you add up all the numbers that she weaned, and it gives you a sow average. And of course, for the whole herd, if you adds up all the individual sows, this goes up to sow 105. If you've got 105 sows, which is 5 sows a week farrowing, it will work out the herd average for the total weaned, and also the interfarrowing period for the whole herd. Guys, these whole herd numbers are the ones that determine your profitability. Not that exceptional sow, it's the other ones that aren't so exceptional that brings you down. Okay, so sow records. The next one is your litter records. Okay, so again, this is the full record of each litter. So the litter number, of course, again, the week of the year that it was born. The date born year was the 30th of April, so that was week 18. The boar number, the ID number of the boar was number 7. The sow parity was it was her first parity. Her number was example. Sorry, that was her identification number. She gave birth to 12 live piglets, no dead and mummified. She overlaid 1, so she only weaned 11. Number weaned was 11. And I didn't foster anything off or on her. I did the teeth and tailing the day after they were born. As you'll look at, if you look at the full training course, I do teeth and tailing the day after they are born. The reason for that is those little sharp, razor-sharp needle teeth can do damage within minutes of being born. Okay, I don't want to do teeth and tailing on a newborn piglet and so on, but I do it as fast as possible. The next day, I do them, and I'm not going to do teeth and then on day 3 do iron injections and so on. So I do everything on the day after they were born. But the date that should be done, the date that I actually weaned them. So they were born 30th of April and they weaned on 28th of May. And the days date slaughtered. And of course, the difference between the date slaughtered and the date born is your days to slaughter. So that's how old they were at slaughter. And again, so if this will work out an average for you, and you can say, oh shit, my average is 8 months, 240 days, and say, oh, that's not good enough. That's terrible, actually. And also the number weaned there comes out of your whole herd averages and so on. But it gives you a whole record of each litter. And again, that if you trying to sell a boar and some gilts to somebody else, you say, okay, there's gilts there, their litter number is 18, their dad was number 7, and the gilts, their ear tag numbers are, their ear notch numbers says number 15. And their dad was boar number 5, so they're not related. Yes, you can sell a boar from that litter, and gilts from that litter, they're not related, because obviously the moms will be different as well, within a short 2-3 week period and so on. She can't get pregnant in that short time. Okay, so that's our third one. Now our running feed conversion. This works out how many kilos of food does it take to produce 1 kilo of meat. Now, unless you've got a scale, we are going to be working on a feed conversion to carcass weight, not live weight, because you are getting your carcass weights from your kill sheet from the abattoir back. So you've got those, and you've got your invoices for food that you've bought. So you've got your food, you've got your carcass weight, you can work out your feed conversion rate, and then you can compare that to industry standards again and see whether it's up there, or whether your food is, if you're taking twice as much food to produce a kilo of meat than the industry standard. And you say, okay, that's a problem, huge problem, because 70% of your feed cost is 70% of your production costs is feed. So that would be an absolute a major problem and so on. So again, very simple. All you've got to do is the date and the weight, not the price. Okay, the price goes there, but the weight of food that you bought in and so on. Now, if you went and bought a ton of watermelons, and more watermelons have got 92% water. So that ton of watermelons, you actually only bought 80 kilograms of dry matter. So then you put your dry matter, not the 1 ton of watermelons there, put the dry matter there, because most of your other commercial feeds are going to be dry matter weights. So if you add, this is a cumulative number, at the bottom it will add up all of the times that you've how many kilos of food that you buy for any period, and it adds it up cumulatively, and also the total carcass weight that you get your figures back from the abattoir. Now, the only thing you've got to add here, if you're selling something live, then you've got to work out sort of an approximate carcass weight for it. So if you're selling a gilt at 120 kilos as a breeding stock, then you've got to take off it's sort of 80 kilos carcass weight and add it there as a sale, as a meat sale. So that any live animals that you sell, you've got to then convert to carcass weight and add it to your kill from the abattoir and so on, and then you will get your feed conversion ratio to a kilo of meat, not to kilo of live weight, but to kilo of carcass weight. Okay, and then also the cost, how much does it cost you to produce 1 kilo of meat? And so if you've got that cost and you multiply it by 1.3, which is sort of with your food being 70%, you add another 0.3, which is all the other costs, then you sort of got a figure for your cost of production. And of course, if that is more than what you're getting for your meat, then you're definitely not making money either. So these are figures that has immediate actionable information to make informed decisions on what do I need to change, or how do I need to change it to make money out of that? Sorry, that's that one. So the monthly stock reconciliation. Now, this is an example, and I've sort of color coded this to show you that this sow that changed class here went there. So it was a mated gilt and so on, and I had one of them here in this month, and you'll see the next month she gave birth, and then she moved up to there. So there, I added one there, I subtracted one on the decreases, and I've added one onto the increases and so on. This is the stock numbers: 23 sows, 2 mated gilts, another two mated gilts, 3 unmated gilts that I've kept back for breeding. I've got 2 working boars. I've got a young boar that's coming up, and that's not quite mateable size yet for breeding. I brought him in, but he's sort of adapting still. But this is your starting numbers for the month. You had 263 piglets. After some increases and some decreases, your total stock numbers are now this, and I've only got 251 left this month and so on, and that will become your starting numbers for your next month. So this is sort of an example of also mostly the births and so on is easy to fill in, and deaths and meat killed for meat and so on. But the stock class changes. This gives you sort of a color coded info on how to do that. Okay, so this is the example, and this is your monthly sheets. So you can fill in your farm name and the date. It's 11th of October, whatever, and then put in your stock numbers, and then at the end of the month add how many stock was born, how many did you buy, and in the next month how many of these have changed classes and so on. So this you can do monthly for your whole piggery. So monthly stock reconciliation for your piggery. Now, I said to you, I've just, let's look at this one first. So here's a sow gestation table. Let me just make this a bit bigger for you. There. Okay, so here's that if your sow was mated on the 1st of March, she will give birth, or she's due to farrow on the 24th of June, and the 24th of June is week 26. Okay, so that whole week is week 26 up to the 30th of June. If she's born on the 1st of July, then she's born in week 27 and so on. But here's the date that you mated them, the date that they are due to farrow, and the week that week is week 26. That week is, and so on. So you can, when you're filling that in, you can come refer to here on the week for the litter numbers and also the due dates. Okay, in the mating sheet, your due date will be automatically calculated for you. Now, again, just the ear notching system, guys, very, very simple, because both sides are basically the same. Now, when you look over the wall, the pigs look at you. And when you read a number, you read number 52. You don't read 250. So I made it so that you read it normally. The 50 is here. Let's start with the ones. If you have pigs born in the first week of January, then they will be litter number 1, and you will make 1 notch at the top of the ear. Now, do not notch this part of the ear is much thicker, and it will bleed profusely. So sort of make it not too close to the tip, but on the top of the ear for a 1. If you have to, number 2 is 2 ones. So there you've got to sort of fit it in so it's not too close to the tip and also not on the thick bit and so on. Number 3 is just a clip at the tip of the ear. Number 4 is a 3 and a 1. Number 5 is 1 just under the tip of the ear. And of course, on the 10 side, you just add a 0 to each one of those. So very easy to read and understand. And that will give you the 52 weeks of the year, and you will be able to know exactly how old every pig in your piggery is. So I've just made this sort of a 1 will be there on the right ear, your right-hand side, the pig's left-hand side. Number 2 will be 2 notches at the top of the ear. Number 3, the tip. Number 4 is a 3 and a 1. Number 5, number 6 is a 5 and a 1, and so on. So these are number 1 to 9, and this is number 10 to number 90. So you can make 99 out of those notches. If you are a bit bigger and you want it's the 50 cell unit, you can use a 100 and a 200 notch at the bottom here, and then you can go to 399 liters, and that should cover you for up to a 50 cell unit as well. So all of these things are in the spreadsheet, and as I say, it is keeps all your data that you need, production records, in one place, and it gives you actionable information to make informed decisions on. Okay, so that is the record keeping spreadsheet. Okay, let's just make this bigger again. Okay, so at the start here, we've got, now this is the source data. All the other tabs work from this. So do not change this, because then you'll mess up the whole spreadsheet and so on. Actually make a copy of the whole spreadsheet, so you've got a true copy, and if you make a mistake, then you've got a backup and so on. But basically here you can say, listen, I'm weaning on 28 days, or you can change that to 35 or 42 days or whatever your weaning days, or the age at weaning. You can, how long does it take, that herd average that we worked out, you write that in there, and that will work out automatically. So you only fill in the white blocks, do not fill in any colored blocks. There's formulas in there that will work it out for you. So you, with 28-day farrowing, weaning, and 4 days between weaning and remating, it will give you 2.48 liters per cell per year. The interest rate, this is if you're taking a loan and you need to pay interest, that's 10%. The number of cells, as I said, you can do any cell from 1 to 1 million in there, and so on. Now, if I did that to 22 cells, you'll see at 25, it's 1.19 cells per week farrowing, and so it works on the average. But if I go 22, that if everything goes perfect, oops, there. So with 22 cells, it's there. So if I say 21 cells, I use 25, guys, just to have a few to fill in a gap. If you have 22 cells or 21 cells and one of them skip, then you've got a week without any income. So I always keep 1 or 2 extra, so that I can fill in that extra 3 or 4 that I'm keeping on hand in there. So, but 21 cells, farrowing all of them, or getting mated within 4 days, and weaning at 28 days, you can have 21 cells and have a litter every week of the year. But as I say, I work on 25 and so on. But you can see that this formula works it out from your cell numbers. And guys, even if you've got 25 cells, it's better to mate 2 cells every 2 weeks instead of 1 a week. Because if you have 2 cells and one farrows and have 15 babies and the other one has 7, then you can cross foster. It gives you options. Of course, to do that, you need an extra ball. So always to have 1 extra ball, okay, it costs you money.